we needed to apply two lenses to the same problem. And so implicit in your question is that there is a division between what Mike focuses on, what I focus on. There isn't. There's two people in the box called CEO at Alorica. Mike and I share that together.
Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. Our broadcast today includes a fireside chat that I led at our Metis Strategy Summit held on October 29th. This conversation features the co-chief executive officers of Alorica, Mike Clifton and Max Schwendner, where they discuss the transition from CIO to CEO, the way in which they collaborate as co-CEOs, the future of artificial intelligence at their company, and more. I hope you enjoy the conversation.
Really looking forward to this conversation for a variety of reasons. I know that as we have often polled during sessions like these, audiences like these, I know there are a number of you who have the ambition to become chief executive officers. And we have two of them here, but I'm going to begin with Mike Clifton. Mike is a many-time chief information officer. He was a CIO at Hanover Insurance. He was the chief operations and information officer at Federal Home Loan Bank of Boston. He was the CIO of Cognizant, which is where I first got to know him. In addition to he was a chief technology innovation officer there, as I recall as well. He joined Alorica as the chief information digital officer, and now, along with Max, is the co-chief executive officer. And let's just begin with that topic. I'm going to get into a variety of other topics, but I wanted to ask you about that pathway from CIO to CEO. What about your time as a CIO helps prepare you for the role you currently have?
So, I get this question quite a bit.
I'm not the first.
Not the first.
Let's move on.
Why would you do this again? I think as CIO or any innovation or chief technology officer, you always get this sort of one statement that everybody tells you. You're here to support the business in their goals. What are you doing to support the business in their goals? And I have a different kind of DNA in me. I always sit there and say, but I am the business. Like, I spend so much money. Why are you considering me not the business?
It's true. He does.
Yeah, it's spent a lot of money. And finance people like to remind us that a lot, which I get every day. But in that sort of scenario, I always felt frustrated that it wasn't a credit due or a success criteria. We all chalk up the wins when we do things. It's just that, well, what do I need to do to be that person? Like, stop telling me that. What do I need to do to be that person? And then I've been a CEO before of small startups. It's easy in the venture community to use our skills to flip it into an immediate value. But it was never big enough to sort of scale and matter to sort of the credibility curve of being a CEO at a $2+ billion company. And so the two things I walked away with was, if you are going to continue to tell me that I need to support the business, then I'm going to be the business. So we are now the business. And the second is, I think in technology, it's much like the services business we're in. And thank you to many of the people who spoke today who are also our clients. So thank you for the business. I have to say that. But I think the one thing we learned is that it's all about people. And I've said this before, I think in one of the interviews that you and I had done in the past, leading people, inspiring people, and figuring out how to make the change happen isn't done because of technology. It's not done because of a business strategy. It's done because you inspired them to get there. So I'd say, whether it's a technologist, which are a different group of people than business people, to what we have in our associates called Aloricans throughout the world, you got to find that lens that kind of they aspire to want to be part of your energy and go. And I think that's the one learning I picked up from any of the roles that I had.
That's a great description and by extension, great advice to members of this audience who might wish to walk in your footsteps. Thank you for that, Mike. Moving to you, Max. Max, you were a former investment banker with JP Morgan. I believe that was your first exposure to Alorica.
That's right.
As an investor in it.
That's right.
You joined the company in 2019 as a CFO, thus the mockery from Mike. With regard to being a numbers guy, you became the president of global services before becoming co-CEO with a gentleman to your right. So the founder of your company, Andy Lee, is a former chief information officer of Gateway.
That's right.
So between the three of you, including Andy, you're the only non-CIO. How did you get this job without being a CIO?
That's an excellent and very fair question. I'd like to think I'm smarter than them, but I know that's not true. I just work twice as hard. That's all.
I'll judge as to whether that's true. That's the next poll, by the way.
No, I think what's great about it is I've always had someone earlier panel asked about curiosity. We get asked this question. We go around the world, talk to our associates all over the world. They say, what's the number one thing that you'd ask or give advice on is curiosity. So I was always curious about the world of IT and technology and the like, curious about finance, curious about businesses of all different kinds. And so I think the curiosity piece Mike and I share, coming at us from two different lenses, has I've been able to hold my own in a room full of CIOs. So hopefully that's true here today as well. So
can you speak to how you divide responsibilities? There is the obvious of what we just described in terms of your backgrounds,
sure.
And the disciplines that you've led prior to taking on this role. How else do you think about the division of that? So it's fascinating to think about two. With two, there's not a tiebreaker necessarily. There's you come from different angles, which I imagine is very, very useful. But I can also see that as potentially being having issues associated with it as well. How do you think about that?
I'll start. So I think what we promised ourselves, and when we thought about the changing dynamic of our space, right, which is Alorica is a global CX company, 100,000 technologists, solutionists around the world. We needed to apply two lenses to the same problem. And so implicit in your question is that there is a division between what Mike focuses on, what I focus on. There isn't. There's two people in the box called CEO at Alorica. Mike and I share that together. But just like with our market-facing folks and our operations-facing folks, there's two people in that box as well. So while I may have more of a financial bend to it and Mike has more of a technology bend to it, I think work collaboratively on every decision that's made externally and talk a lot internally between the two of us.
Yeah, we have one rule. If you ask the CEO a question and the box answers, it's the answer. There is the answer. Whether it was one of us in that box or there was two of us at that meeting, it's the answer, and that's the rule. So the organization got very, very enamored by that. They tried it. They tested the theory that could be the case a little bit, but it got pretty quickly corrected. But I think it helped. I mean, we're not alone in this, right? We've done some analysis. There are other companies, fairly global ones in media streaming, as well as some of the cloud services companies that you guys use all the time that have co-CEOs. The job is complicated. We're going through a massive pivot. You guys know it. I mean, we're full of technologists, and I think if you read most of the analysts' world, the industry that is the number one target for the first use case of most of the technology you're talking about here is customer service. It's the easiest place to go to test stuff out. And you don't spend a lot of money on call centers. It's just never been the place where you've invested money to get the money back. Omni-channel systems, CCaaS platforms, AI chatbots, stuff that helps with effectiveness or call it efficiencies, you'll do. But they're not the big bunny that is going to change the industry. We're in the middle of that pivot. It takes a lot of brain power to find the way out of that. We are not a public entity, so we have highly creative in being able to use our capital. And so we're putting that to work in different ways with investments. And I think that's where we shine as sort of one box.
Yeah.
So as you mentioned, you're a tech-enabled experiences across every touch point company. Really interesting sort of framing of this. And you talked about artificial intelligence. Clearly a disruptive technology to what you've traditionally done. And this is a classic case where the innovator's dilemma could become a true dilemma for an organization like yours. Leaning into this, by definition, means finding and identifying ways in which this is going to cannibalize existing businesses. And I've admired from our past conversations with each of you the extent to which you are leaning in, as you highlighted. And I want to double click on what you've begun to introduce. I'll begin with you, Mike, if you don't mind, and Max, please feel free to fill in any details behind that. But talk a bit about some of the applications and even the thought process of cannibalizing existing ways of operating.
Yeah, the one key thing for our industry, and you probably all see it, is we have to cannibalize a sort of innovate or die, right? So to your point, we have to cannibalize our own business to be tomorrow's next generation experience company. We know that. We're probably positioned better than anyone in the industry to do that, given our market condition. So we're taking a very aggressive posture at that. We've done a few investments that I think are of help with our posture. One of the places is in voice. We are specialists at voice. You know how complicated it is to move large volumes of calls around the world. But voice is kind of our specialty. So we've taken voice and we've invested a fair amount of money in the ability for us to translate real time into 70 plus different languages to a single call taker. So it doesn't matter what you're talking on the other end. We're hearing what we need to hear to service the call with the right dialect, inflection, tonality, so that we can service the call. effectively. Our agents love it. Our clients, you guys and the customers at the other end, do not have any idea that's what's happening. They realize that they've got a great experience in the right dialect and tone to be able to happen. So when you think of those AI investments around that, it's immensely important to our industry, because if you think about it, you force a lot of change in our industry around labor pool and labor markets. This opens up labor pools and labor markets that were never resident before. And we have a geographic footprint that's probably aligned best to using that technology to our advantage as a competitive one. The second is tonality and dialect neutralization. A lot of what you'll see in healthcare companies, and we spoke a little earlier, we work with them a lot, around people do not like to hear dialect. They want to hear natural language and the tonality they want. So we've got another investment around dialect neutralization that'll just harmonize that and level it out so that everyone can hear what they need to hear on the other end and make it a really good call. You measure everything like we talked about OKRs and all the things in KPI and saturate and capacity management and IT. You flip it to the KPIs you put on a human. It's average handling time, turnaround time, call handling. All those numbers get really the advantage of using this technologies get pretty quickly realized when you look at those metrics pretty quick. So we think voice is a place where we can differentiate pretty aggressively.
Yeah, the only thing I think I'd add to that, really well said, is I'm a big movie fan. So those of you that are Dr. Strangelove fans, the alternate title of that movie is How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. What Mike and I like to joke is that we've how to learn to stop worrying and love AI, right? So there isn't a part of our business that we don't think AI can play a role. Mike's exactly right on the voice delivery side, but also in improving and mass customization of the agent experience, improvements in how we go to market, how fast the company can move, how quickly we can adapt. And, someone spoke earlier about the data that you possess on banking clients, for example, at Capital One. The aggregate amount of data that we work with our clients to provide insights in their own customer base is immense. And it's an area where we haven't been able to tap as much, but it's a place where we're putting a lot of focus and attention. I think Mike said it really well. We are better able than I think than any of our competitors to do this because we have a founder-led, let's call it a CIO and a CIO in training mindset as it relates to technology. So I think we're taking some pretty bold swings and kind of going where the ball is going to be as opposed to where it is today.
Staying with you for a moment longer, Mike Bertha and I were in Houston recently with a group of chief information officers, and included among them is your current CIO, your successor, Harry Folliter, phenomenal guy. And he shared with me a prototype of Ava.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about Ava?
Sure. So Ava is a MetaHuman, as we call it. It is completely built upon customized large language models for each of our clients. But we just call it Ava as kind of one general thing. You can talk to her. You can have text exchanges with her, chat exchanges and the like. But it's a completely humanless experience that also dovetails nicely, as Mike said, from let's call it the tier 1 or the front end to the tier 2 or to the tier 3, depending on what kind of interaction you're having with a client. So we've invested a lot of time and focus and energy. She works in all languages, never sleeps. The KPIs are consistent. So as a finance guy and an aspiring CIO, it works for me. But it's a remarkable step in that direction. And what I think Mike will probably pick up on is we approach this as a bespoke thing for each of our clients. We don't have one model that we feed everything into. It's segregated for each. And so Ava let's call it our harmonized way of talking.
That's great. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I would, so for technologists in the room, it is the reason we segment it that way. And you guys probably click like this in a second, which is we really, the extents and the testing of the ability to use Ava as a true production environment tool needs to be perfect. And some of the things that we've done, I think one of the questions we always get, and I'll answer it before you ask it, Peter, which is, so your business is eroding, cannibalization, things are going away. And the reality, I think some of the great use cases that were on the customer experience panel this morning, we're using. So if you think about prescription and pharmacy management, one of our biggest healthcare segments, you call in for your doctor's prescription and you need a third party. You can't use it. You have to have a generic. You can't use it out of the box. And today that has been a little bit like you could use the tools, you could use the apps to get your prescription. And our calls, thousands of them come in every day. And it's usually the price point that's a problem. To the point made earlier, what we've got is the ability for both those large language models, but also this sort of human and augmented capability for the call, the tonality of listening, and literally drive what out of the prescriptions without a human even talking. We've gotten the likeliness of the call, the prescriptions, and the subs. So we can give the person on the phone an answer in what would have been 3 minutes to find it all in about 30 seconds. Now, the customer is very happy. The call time is way down. The efficiency's there. But it doesn't stop. Now we've gotten into a place where that sort of augmentation goes into medical care, doctor's visits, but also other prescription care and telemed. So you're starting to see what used to be the less complex transactions go away in our business. The highly complex come back into our business because now you can do more things with those humans than you would have done before. So we always say humans in the loop. But the reality of our situation is it's likely that we're continuing to expand our service base to be even broader than it ever was before, with complexity coming back in, because that learning and those augmented tools are driving much more efficiency for us.
Well, if you think about it, to just add one point, we're talking to your customers all the time, right? And if you could solve the problem they have and then maybe sell them something or learn something about them or provide a service that you guys otherwise would be a touch point you missed, we're doing that with several of our largest accounts right now, where we're generating millions and millions of dollars of sales just completely on top of regular care calls that were handled quickly and efficiently and effectively, which opens up for new opportunities. So it's great.
Very interesting. Well, I want to thank you both. Mike, thank you so much for elucidating your own pathway from CIO to CEO. Congratulations. It's an aspirational journey I know many in this room hope to follow. Max and Mike, thank you so much also for providing great insights into the future of AI, its application in a business like yours, and more broadly, applications to businesses like the ones that are here. Won't you all join me in thanking Mike and Max?